Alright, well, this is going to be recorded so you know no one is watching right now. Welcome to the second Ask Me Anything. Get a hold of us on Facebook, just comment, and then we'll try to hit everything that we can. The length of your stroke, etc., based on different powered so I basically elaborating the way that I have it in my mind is that there's three different places to generate power from in your body for the shot. You either have your hand, your wrist, or finger manipulation through the there or your hinges of your fingers and using leverages and creating different balance points, or using just the pendulum mechanism of your elbow and then also like you can do up and down shoulder movement to add power, because what you end up with is you end up with if your elbow drops, then you're adding rotational power, which translates to tangential velocity into the cue. As if you're swinging and you drop your elbow, that will accelerate the cue. So for the way that I do it is, for most slower shots, I just use my bicep and tricep activation, and then I'll just pull back a small amount for shorter shots, and then as power is necessary, then I'll pull back further, so that each shot power basically translates to a direct amount of, like, this is how far back I'm able to hit it, this far forward. And then on very fine shots, I'm not moving the ball very far at all. I might just use, like, say I'm playing safe. What?
Oh, I said Rick said that the feed is lagging pretty bad.
Okay, well, we're probably internet that. Maybe I could turn it back off. And then just.
He said the video quality is poor. I have it set to the highest setting on my browser. But like on mine, it's not that bad.
Alright, well, I turned the Wi-Fi off, so
maybe that's why.
The phone upload will work better. I don't know.
Brett's on there too. He said it's pretty rough, bro.
Anyways, we're just gonna continue on. See if it gets better. If not, we're gonna eventually have a better situation here, so apologies. So
He said it's looking better.
For finer shots, I might just use my hand, and basically I have it set up to where I can open my hand roughly, and then just by squeezing it, it changes the hinge of my wrist, and it does make my forearm move, but just by squeezing my hand, it's creating, the squeeze of the hand is what's creating all that motion. It's not actually like me using my wrist like this, it's just squeezing. When you like open and close, it creates an angle change. So like on a shot where I might just be rubbing off the ball, you can just squeeze through and hit it without actually moving anything else other than just your hand. So that's like very fine finesse shots. On a shot like this, just a straight in shot, I'll just take a full swing and then just come through without really using a lot of power with my hand. But then on a shot where you might have to put some stroke on it, like say I'm going to shoot the same shot but with draw. Say I want to draw back to the spot. Then I'll use a little bit, maybe a full swing, but I will create a little bit more tension in my hand. And then at the beginning of the stroke, I will start to squeeze my hand to help make the acceleration quicker and forward, so that by the time my hand has reached the point where I'm hitting the ball, it's transitioning to being a natural, a little bit, if there's going to be less tension there because it's being released at the beginning of the stroke to accelerate it, and then you're just ending up with more velocity. And then if you need more acceleration, then you can just enhance the effect. So if I'm just drawing the ball, it's just more tension in my hand. And then you just increase and magnify that, and then on like a break shot, you would then be maybe applying like shoulder drop to it. Pretty good. That was like the third ball I hit today. Yeah, so like on the break, I'm not actually going to break the balls. But if you're breaking the balls hard, maybe not so hard, and you don't even, because you can pick up your body, like elevate your shoulder, or like step forward, or you can like lean forward and kind of come up. Like send your hips forward, that can move your body forward, it'll add a little bit of power, consistent power. You just have to make sure that because your body's moving, that your stroke's going to move as well, so you got to be a little bit more dialed in there. But just by like choking up a little bit, and then elevating your shoulder, then when you come down you can drop your elbow and come through straight and add power that way as well. So that's basically all I have on the different levels of power and how it translates to the hand. There are ways to use like rotation as well. Like I know that Shane kind of rotates his body on his break, and he breaks kind of sidearm almost, where his hand comes in this way, and he's just breaking, basically using his hip power to break. And it's more like kind of like a modified type of golf swing, really, for pool. But I'm not going to necessarily like spend time doing rotational additions because I think most of it can be done just by learning how to do it. Just using the vertical axis power that you can achieve. The second
so
thing.
the squeeze is at the beginning of the forward stroke and not at the end?
Oh yeah, okay, so the question is, the squeeze is at the, yeah, so the squeeze, I would say, happens, let me come over here so you can see a little bit better. So what it is I don't let my hand just open up completely. I keep it locked kind of to a certain position so that when the angle of the cue and my hand starts to be out of alignment of the 90, then it creates pressure in my hand. Like my hand is not allowing the cue to just move like this. I'm holding it so that my hand, it forces tension into it. And then when I have it as far back as I want to pull, then what I do is I start to squeeze, and that makes it come back to this 90-degree angle. And then you just squeeze, and then you're just letting that tension go away. And as soon as the tension is gone, you just let it go through. That's the moment when you're contacting it, the tension goes to zero, and then you're just letting the cue go forward because you're not applying any more power to the ball.
He says, I find my grip is loose when I pull back, and if I squeeze, it drops the tip, and I miscue.
Well, yeah, if your grip is loose on the way back, then you're squeezing, and now you're creating a new thing. What I'm basically doing is I'm having it at neutral, and then when it goes past neutral, then it develops tension in the hand, and the only way to release the tension is to go back to the same place, which is where it started. Versus what it seems like you might be talking about as being loose and then back and then squeezing to tight to come through, which is not the same as having it locked to a position, which is this is where I want my hand to be, and then if I pull back beyond that, it creates tension in my hand, and the only place where there'll be no tension is the neutral position, which is where you're going to strike the ball, basically. Because I keep my hand like set to where the cue is like sitting in it. I'm not squeezing it, I'm just holding my hand in a position, to where the cue will just sit there. And then by pulling my hand back, it creates tension because the way that my hand is set up, it doesn't allow all the motion. Like when I pull this way, there's pressure in the web in between my finger and my thumb, and there's pressure in my pinky because the angle change when you go from here to here. It's kind of like rotating about the middle, and then now it's touching here and the bottom, and then that's where the tension comes from, is by squeezing back to the neutral, because my hand's been extended. Squeezing back to the neutral comes to the same spot that I started at, and I think that it's all kind of by design. If you try to stay loose and then you're loose here at the back, and then you try to squeeze, you're basically like, in golf, that'd be like a two-plane swing, where you're like starting out at a place, you go to a place, and then when you come back to that initial place, you're coming in at a different angle. So we'd have to then do, because what I'm doing is returning to the exact same position. The way I look at it is like, when you're here, and you're going to hit the ball, the theory that I like to kind of follow myself is that whatever you do here, it doesn't matter. What matters is that when you come back to the spot, that your body's in exactly the same position that it was when you left it. It's all about being able to like come to this spot and then return to this exact position, except for now you have velocity going towards the ball. It's like, you know exactly how you want to be. If I'm here, then I know if I can just return to that exact spot, then as I come through, just because I'm here proper, if I could just shoot this way and just push forward through like Ronnie Allen, then it would go. It's just about trying to create the power so that you can return to that initial position, if that makes sense. It is kind of like a little bit of a nuanced thought process, maybe. The way that I'm thinking about it is kind of the same as being loose, but what I'm basically doing is creating, I want to return to the same position, so I'm just going to stop this ball. So when I'm here, my goal is that when I pull back and come back, at this moment here, my body's in exactly the same position, except for now it has velocity. And even though my hand changes its shape, because back here, when it finally returns to this position, it's at the same shape that it started out at. And then as I come through, in order to make sure that it's loose, on the follow through, I make sure that the top has none of the energy. Now transitioning from here, now when I've fallen through, now it's the opposite, where now there's weight in the index finger and at the back of the hand, so it switches to this. And the middle spot is where you're vertical and perfectly up and down, 90 degrees.
Grace says makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, so now get a little bit warm here. Let's take this thing. I think we'll talk one more thing about like the transition and the pause between your stroke, and I'll just hit a few balls and kind of talk about it. I think that it's a really good thing to do, to like have a transition. I almost like to have like a delineation between my pulling back, and then there's like a hard stop in my mind where I can then take, okay, the forward energy feels like this, so that when I'm playing pool, and say I'm just going to draw over to here on this 2-ball to the 4-ball, I try to connect with the forward stroke. If I use a certain forward stroke, then it's going to make the ball go to the place. That ball is going to go to the place if I'm lined up properly, obviously. And then the object ball is going to go there. The cue ball is going to go to the spot because of the forward stroke. Now, how I get to that spot where I can accomplish the forward stroke is the backstroke, and I like to try to be like, okay, we build to the power of the forward stroke, and then once you know, okay, this is the tension, that I have, the way I set up, like I said, tension in the hand beyond a certain point. Like at the beginning, not hard, you're just going to be like pulling it back a little bit. There's not really any tension there. All it is like when you pull back a little bit, your hand wants to return to the 90 because of the weight of it. So you're just kind of like, okay, this much weight, because you just lets it come back, will hit the ball and it'll go that far. So you're not really engaging your bicep to hit it. You're just pulling your tricep back, and then letting your tricep relax is what makes the cue go forward. So you're not really adding power. You're just like, you're pulling it. It's almost like you're lifting the cue by pulling your hand back. Because if you just keep your elbow stationary and you pull your hand back, it's actually going up. And then it obviously wants to come back down. So you're just like, how far up do I want to go? Is how much power I'm using. So if I'm going to go to here, I like to think, okay, this is the forward swing. So that when I come back down, then I'm like, okay, this is the tension because this is the forward swing that I need. And having a pause between it. And I think it's almost like to me, if you can do the pause, that means that you're comfortable. So it's more like, if I can do the pause, then I'm comfortable, and I know if I can't do it, that I'm not comfortable. So really, the pause itself is just choppy and ragged unless you're comfortable. So part of like the process of it is you gotta commit to learning how to be comfortable so that the pause will actually be the right way and not just something else, and that just has to do with practicing it. Like you just come down once you know your shot, and then you just pull back and you're like, this is my pause, and then you just come forward. And I'll try to play it to here, so that a little bit. And then as far as kind of moving along to the next thing was talking about achieving more consistency with everything. And I think that for me, in order to be consistent, truly consistent, you have to actually micromanage at some point every single thing you're doing so that you know what consistency actually wants to look like. Like how can you achieve the sameness of every stroke without actually having like every single moment of the stroke analyzed and decided upon beforehand so that you know what it's supposed to look like. And at least for the first one iteration of 100% consistency, you'll have to have known that it's exactly the way that it was in order to repeat it. And then essentially, in order to repeat it, you have to like have it memorized. So at some point you have to know what it is. And it's not like it's simple to do, but over time, if you pay attention to your body while you're shooting the shot, you will start understanding what is helping you make the ball and what is hurting you, what is making it harder, and then just eliminating those things that are not helping you by adding better habits in. Be like, well, if my elbow is off to the side, and then when I swing through, it makes my hand come through and out to the side. Well, the solution is not to like try to guide your hand straight. The solution is to get your elbow in a spot where you're naturally swinging on a straight line. All you have to do is concentrate on the habit you're trying to form, and then eventually the habit that you're trying to let go of will just go away because you're not using it anymore because you've built in a new habit that overrides that habit. It just takes time to form it. So you have to focus on it. And then once you like get tired of working on it, you move to the next thing, and then you see over time how well you've developed that habit by not focusing on it completely and just letting it go where it will. And then if it's good, then you won't have to ever come back to it again because you'll have learned the good habit. And if it's not good, then it'll continue to be replicated. And over time, and you'll just start seeing, okay, if I'm like, my angle of my body is not proper. Like for me, I like to turn before I start to move so that it keeps my head on the plane, over the shot plane, and it also allows my back shoulder to get onto the shot plane more easily without having my head have to move while I'm going down on the ball. So I'll turn and then step. The turning kind of makes me feel like I have to step, and then now my body is turned, so now I can just take one step to a natural spot and then just continue to move towards the ball, and my shoulders are in the right spot to typically be able to just shoot and make this ball. Now, if I just stand straight and if I come forward and then I start to turn, a lot of times I don't turn enough, and now I'm cued differently than I was. And only through a lot of repetitions and studying what you're actually doing when you're doing it right, when you're doing it better, and you're like, oh, this might actually work, I just have to dial in the motion of it, then you start getting more consistent. Because then, for instance, when I was trying to add the turn to make sure, because I was like, oh, I think that this is actually going to help me be more consistent, I just need to add this habit, and then I had to just reinforce it, be like, I have to turn, step, instead of step and then turn, if that makes sense. It's just an order of operations, so that it has to make sense to you, so that you can just feel, when I say turn, I'm just like, I'm not saying turn in my head, I'm just making sure to turn first. But you're expressing with communication what you're doing. But when you're writing it down so that you have your steps of your shooting system, because I feel like the best thing to do is to write it down so that you can change it. You know exactly what your ideal is because it's written down, and then over time you can change your ideal. And then once you get a little bit more locked in with 95% of it, now you're kind of like, well, you just let it go where it wants to go, and then you just add to it, and then once in a while you kind of have to really think about it. But I would recommend just shooting like one very simple shot or a drill that you're very good at, so you don't have to spend as much mental energy deciding what you're trying to do. The shot itself changes what you have to do. If the shot changes, to me, if you're trying to make a small change and lock it in, if you just shoot a repeating situation over and over again, it's easier to keep your mind and awareness on the thing that you're trying to actually change, which is boring in a sense, but once you start improving using that strategy, you'll see that it's actually works pretty well, because you don't have to change a lot at once. It's just one thing. Like I said, if I start tilt and then come in and down, then I just focus on coming back and straight through, even though I'm like having a conversation about what I'm doing, because I have the order set up properly, that I can pretty much replicate it pretty well. Not all the time, obviously, but it's getting more consistent because I have the order. I said tilt, step, down, in, right? So my recommendation would be for people, if you want to get more consistent, is you got to watch yourself play as much as you can, so that you can identify the things that are there that you want to have be there when you're consistently doing exactly the way you want. And then the inconsistencies, you'll start seeing what they are. You'll be able to identify them, and then you'll be like, well, what part of my body is inconsistent? And then just develop a thing that overrides that is what you want to see. Like if your tip comes up, that means your hand is going down, or you're gripping your cue, which is fine if that's what you want it to look like. If you want the tip to stay down, then the typical ways to do that are you just focus on having your hand not come out, have it come up, and keep it loose enough to where the shaft will stay down. Stuff like that, or just focus on whatever the thing is, Like I've had a lot of trouble. Sometimes I won't focus on where my cueing is, and I'll come into the ball and be wrong, and then have to adjust. And some of the time, what I'm doing is like, well, am I actually angled wrong from the beginning, or am I cued to put English? But if I move back to straight, am I straight? And the thing is that you don't want to have that question. You want to be able to come down and then be straight without having to think about it. If you find yourself off to the right or the left, and then you have to adjust, then eventually you need to get to the point where you're going to be able to come down and be straight and not adjust, and have that be making the ball. Otherwise, you're going to have to guide yourself to that spot from a different spot. You got anything else?
No.
All right.
I can check in.
What time is it?
10:25.
10:25. 30 minutes left. All right.
35.
Hit a couple more of these and then, yeah, so on to the next thing. What have I been working on? I've been working on the transition quite a bit. I think that was a good thing to bring up. I think that a lot of people are trying to figure out exactly what the swing wants to feel like, you know, and you just have to hit a lot of balls and then feel like what is my swing tempo? Like that was a little bit slower than I really want it to be, you know. But I think that by taking your ideal, like what's my ideal emotional state when I'm playing my best pool, like what does that feel like? And then that will tell you, okay, well, when I feel like that, what's my tempo? And then now you're just be like, well, if I can get my tempo and I can remember my tempo, then that'll draw the consistency of the emotion that I want to feel as well. So you'll be like, okay, well, in order to make this ball proper, I have to use a certain tempo. And if I use a different tempo, then it's not going to be quite the same. And that's part of the consistency that I think people are missing is emotional consistency, where you have to be okay with whatever happens so that you can keep your emotional consistency. You know, it's not about whether or not you make the ball or miss the ball. If you're only going to have a positive reaction when good things happen to you when you're playing pool, and then if a negative thing happens or something that you view as negative happens, then that lowers your emotional state. Then you're going to have a lot of struggles in pool because half the time you're losing. You know, I'm a pretty good player, but if you look at my rating, 4,000 games in the system, I've only won 60% of those games. So I've lost, you know, upwards of 1,500 rated games. And if I allowed each one of those to affect my mentality, I probably would have quit by now. You just have to let it go and be okay with losing. It's part of competition.
Ray's got a comment.
All right, Ray's got a comment. Let's go.
So I have used the back pause before, always used first pause at cue ball. But I feel like the back is just a way to feel the proper stroke while down on the shot. Sean talks about visualization before getting down. If we visualize the stroke before, do we actually need this second back pause?
My opinion is you could learn how to do it properly without a pause by memorizing the full motion, and then you could do it however. I think that it's more about like how many gigabytes of information can you hold at once in one packet so that you can run that whole program without a flaw, or do you have to break it down into more manageable subsections, which to me I think that if the only thing that changes really in your whole in the stroke itself is the final stroke, and that your backswing leads up to that, but then once you're down on the ball, for instance on the shot, at what point are you doing something differently on this shot than any other shot, right? I think that if you go to where like, okay, I'm going to here, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to swing my cue. Everything that happened up until that moment is pretty much whatever. You can do it however you want to. And then, so once you're like finally ready to shoot the shot, I think this is like a spot where you'd be like, okay, you take a snapshot in time where this is what I want it to look like to make this shot. And then whatever you do from there is a separate thing. I just think that the more you get to the stroke, the actual moving part of the stroke, the more you're going to have more awareness of that than anything else, to where you're going to have it finely tuned. The backswing is going to be finely tuned to lead to the forward swing. It ends up being more a full thing, but I think that you have to break it down as minutely as possible at the beginning so that you kind of understand how it works for your own mind. And then over time, you're going to like try to automate as much of that as possible. So like to say the first pause, I would say, yeah, I have a first pause, but really, I mean, I go to here, and this I would consider, I guess, my first pause, right? And then I come back, and I don't necessarily like distinguish heavily between the back, the transition, and then the forward swing. For me, it's all part of the same thing. It's like I have to build up to a certain amount of pressure, and then I let that marinate for a half second, and then I come forward through into the ball. If I start thinking about it too much as being like a strong delineation, now it becomes like a training thing where I'm like trying to understand exactly what I want it to look like by designing it to be differently than it is, or differently than it was. But it's more like an awareness of what it's going to feel like at all stages, and there's going to be like different checkpoints where when you're reversing your motion and now you're going to go forward, now there's different muscle activations that are going to take charge, and now obviously you have to be in charge of that, so you have to think about it. But like the backswing to the forward swing is it's just like a reverse and a forward of the same thing in a way, to where you can marry it together, because one leads directly to the other. The way you do the first part of it leads directly to the second part, but it takes time to get them to be gelled together, and you actually have to like understand the transition of them is part of your own secret that you're putting into it, because all the timing in the hand and the muscular stuff is all happening at once. You have to figure out your own way to do it. But yeah, I would say however you do it, it's going to be very detailed at the end of the day. Like I can come down on this, and I just try to get my hand right, and it takes as many, like, I don't know how many of these there are. I don't count that. It's probably the same amount if you actually spent time on it. But once it feels right, then I'm here. Now I can stay here forever, really. As long as I don't move, nothing has happened. Now all I'm going to try to do is just come back to the same spot when I hit
Ray
the ball.
says, yeah, exactly that. Practicing the pause can feel artificially disjointed, but I like the goal of breaking the physical motions and segmenting them for optimal flow. That makes more sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, this is one of the things
Optimal fluidness.
Right, yeah, it's just one of the things you have to train, is like, in order to be smooth, I guess the quote is, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. At some point you have to take it and break your motion down to where you can do it so slowly that you're aware of exactly where your body is in space at the whole time, and have minute control of the muscles. If you're just swinging, once you get your hand moving, then part of the motion is just a reaction of the inertia being changed, and then at some point that your hand stops, but you could actually do the exact same motion slowly, and if you like can precisely understand where your body's in space, you can replicate the exact same range of motion without having the actual like momentum carrying it, which is probably like a smooth motion as this. But if I do it slowly, there's a chance for like variation in my hand. But when you're playing pool, you need to have more control than just like flipping it. You have to be able to do it slow and fast, because you need to have very precise control of your hand and where it is in space, so that when you're coming through, that it's coming through the same way that you want it to be, that you've designed it to be. And you have to be able to do it slow and fast. There's really no around it, because you have to control all of the speed for all the shots with one stick. So you have, like, all that is very finely tuned. Anything else we got?
Not yet.
Okay.
We got 3 people on though. I don't know who that third person is.
I'm gonna do. I guess I'll just do some of the ghost here.
Oh, here we go. Ray says, gotta go to work, lol.
Oh, thanks for being on, Ray. Appreciate you.
I'll watch
See you
the
later
recording
today.
later. Yeah, he says he'll watch the recording later. Would like to hear about pullback speed in relation to forward stroke speed for a given shot. Long, hard, slow, short.
I don't think about the speed of my. It's more about the energy buildup, because you need to create a certain amount of energy to like hit the ball a certain speed. The speed at which you move your body to set up for that shouldn't be relevant towards how much power you're about to generate. You can either because when you're back swinging, none of that energy that you need to move your hand back is helping you move forward. So the speed at which you do that shouldn't matter at all. It's just a personal thing that you've decided, this is how fast I move my hand back. That's why I say you have to decide, okay, well this is how I want it to feel at all stages, because this is what makes the most sense to me. It doesn't have to be any certain thing. It just is in general. If you go and look at the pros, their strokes are slower and have more time in between them, because I think their muscles are more finely developed to do that, and that allows them to have more control over time, because they're not allowing momentum to be in control of certain things, where they just let it kind of be where it goes with the initial thrust. They're actually finely motor controlling the entire thing, and it's so automated that it's there's no deviations, because it's just finely controlled and automated. My goal is to have a smooth stroke enough to where when I transfer from the backswing to the forward swing, that there's no energy that I use to pull my hand back left when I come forward. There's a maximum, and then a moment where the energy is at peak, and then once I know that I'm at the peak, meaning that there's no more energy being created to then go into the shot. Once that peak has been, now you're releasing the energy that is potential energy into tangential velocity through the acceleration of releasing the energy into your muscles and going forward with it. And then all that energy translates into the velocity, which hits the cue, and actually all the energy that goes into the cue ball comes for that potential, which you just build up through when I either pull my bicep and extend my bicep and exert the energy and then use the leverages there, or the hand being further out here, when I squeeze, that initiates the initial acceleration that I would have had to use my bicep to move forward with, but instead of that I'm using my hand down here, which I think that everyone can agree that your hand is a more finely tuned instrument than your bicep. Then you can more finely tune how fast you're coming forward by the tension that, or the squeeziness of, or whatever you decide to do, if you choose to even do it that way. Like I said, you can pull forward with your bicep, and generally you are going to be doing that, especially on harder strokes, is you're going to have to use your bicep too. But to me, to make a smooth transition, you can use your finer tuned muscles to assist in making it to where you have more gradation and more delineations in your stroke power. If you're just using your bicep, it's well, can you tell the difference between doing a bicep curl of 20 pounds and then 20.1 pounds and 20.2 pounds? But you can with your fingers, you can tell the difference of thickness of 1/1000 of an inch by just going like this. And to me, you kind of have to just, what is the strength of, what I need to do? How finely tuned do I need to be? And then what is on my body that's equipped to be that finely tuned? And your hands are, they're it. They have the most nerves and the most different like ranges of motion, and you can try to like not use it, but I think to me that you have to like use it to your advantage and just try to reduce the disadvantages of like with the turning and the gripping and having it not be productive towards moving the cue in the right direction. All right, we're gonna try to break and run a rack here. I think I'm gonna do. I was thinking about trying to come over here, but actually now I think I'm gonna use right English and then try to come up in this zone. Maybe it goes in the side. Trying to have a shot on the 4, but the 6 is kind of interfering with the angle I want to get to go from the 3 to the 4 by shooting the 3 in the side here. So I think if I get up on this side, then I'll have a better opportunity to come back for the 4. So I think ideally I'm going to try to end up like right here. I mean, yeah, if I can draw back to here and use spin to come down below. Yeah, I did a little bit full. Yeah, that had potential. Need to get a little bit straighter on it. Just gonna stun over. use a touch of right, because I think I gotta make sure when I come through here that I don't hit the 6, so I gotta come with the right English to here instead of maybe up here, which is natural. So I gotta control the speed, or if I hit too much speed, it'll go too far. Which is typical if you put more spin on it. Because you get a little kind of an acceleration off the rail. Yeah, here I gotta make sure to avoid the 7. If I come up too long, then they'll come back here. I don't know if I wanna play to this spot. I don't know. I think we can play here. Just play it like this. And a little dicey. I play this rail on the back. Now here, because it's on this side of the pocket, I prefer to be down here so that I can play it into this rail, and then the speed, depending on how you like to do it, maybe play to here, but ideally, one rail to float to this spot to avoid any potential of the side pocket. And once you get to like here, it's pretty good. What I don't like is coming across and then ending up hitting the rail right here and then floating down under like this. That's no good. So to avoid that, I try to just basically get right on this rail, and then I can choose any of these contact points to like get an exact line to my good spot. And if you end up a little bit funny, then you can always sacrifice and then try to play with these rails. See, I didn't get there. So now, from here, I'm going to just thin it, like hit it this way as much as you can instead of straight into the pocket so that I can play a little bit of right English. Actually, probably not even right because it's inside the pocket a little bit, and play and try to hit the rail right here so that it floats out away and then end up in this spot here. This way you can play just a touch of right English and you just play your speed, and if you hit a little bit too full, it'll still help itself out. See, hit the rail first. Those ones are tricky. Oh, now we just shoot the shot. You can bank it if you like. I pretty much always just cut it on this table. Good to the last one. Maybe I should have drawn.
4 people on there.
Nice. Anybody make a comment?
Not yet. Feel free to post any questions in the chat.
Yeah, you might maybe do like a pinned comment
Yeah, I'll just
in
pin it.
description at some point for those
I can pin
not
that
to
one.
mention it.
I can pin it. So I'll just do
Nice.
that.
Sweet. See if we can kick this in. Low left. A little bit too soft. Made it. Threw it out.
I was wondering.
And I'm just using like a stun. On this thing. Breaks pretty easy from the side if you don't break too hard. Here I like getting about this zone. Gives me options for the 5. A little thin. I'm gonna play a spin shot, left English. Try to twist it forward, or twist the 3 in. Get a little bit of good action. Yeah, if I would have ended up straighter on the 3, then I wanted to play it into the rail and out and then back this way. Seven to the 8, I think the move is to come over here to go 2 rounds for the 8. So I'm gonna come through the middle of the table. Just enough, because you don't have to get too far over. So I like playing this like more like stun with left, and then the spin is what takes you above the 8. If you get too much speed, you're gonna come way too far. You want to get that punch to keep the angle wide. If you let it go forward, you can come down over here, and this is not really what you want to be. You need to come kind of deep and almost like you're trying to scratch. Which on a diamond is legitimate. It's a little tougher, although this Brunswick does, you can scratch in the side off this easier than you can on a lot of them. Yeah, if I had ended up a little bit straighter, obviously I want to get straightish on this to shoot it there. But all this is fine. I just don't like getting a little bit too far away. Like this would have been good too. If I would have hit it with a little bit less spin and more power, it would have came up to like here. So it's pretty close. But here I just play back across to here. Or maybe even back over to here. Whatever you really like. back. It's almost like I knew I wasn't gonna get there. Ooh, left myself a combo.
I have about 4 minutes left, baby.
So I'm just gonna stun this. Cue ball back out. Try to make this combo. So one more.
We're down to 1 person.
Down to one.
Yeah.
Thank you, one. Is it you?
No. No, I mean in addition to me.
Oh.
I am one of 2.
Oh yeah. These are the best ones when you're out. You leave yourself like a tough starting shot. Ooh. Kick it in, okay. So close. Alright, I think that's it. Well, everybody.
Well, if they ever do it. The camera's over there.
Yeah. Thanks for checking it out. Hope you got some benefit. Y'all can check out our formingschool.com community. Check in the links or the bio. And we'll be on again. Trying to make this a regular thing. If anybody wants to get on, please comment. And I'll talk about whatever the comments are. We're just trying to get better at pool and share the knowledge around and help support each other. So I hope everybody has a great day.